so for your exploration, it says, Billy throws a rock off of a cliff near the shoreline into water. The path of the rock is represented by that function right there. And we want to know after how many seconds will the rock hit the water. All right, so first thing I want you to do is draw a picture of that given scenario, okay? So draw a picture, figure out what is going on. All right, number 2, label the spot on your picture that the question is asking us to find. Okay, so your picture is going to help you try and answer the question. All right, for number 3, do we know either an H or T value of the spot that you labeled? And number 4, knowing the methods of solving, can we solve the equation with the methods that we have? Okay, so go ahead and work in your groups on this exploration activity for about 5 minutes. So here we have good old Billy. Okay, he's throwing the rock into the water. All right, so I went ahead and drew my picture. All right, so label the spot on the picture where the question is asking us. So after how many seconds will the rock hit the water? Where are we looking at? Good. So literally where the rock is first going to make contact with the water, which is going to be somewhere in this general area. Okay? All right. Now, do we have either an H or a T value of the spot that I labeled?
I say
H. Okay, does anybody else say H? Okay. Does anybody say T? All right, those who said H, why'd you say H? Yeah?
It was like finding where the rock lands, and in the equation, we're trying to find H.
Good. Hey, guys, can we please pay attention? All right, so if I were to, let's say, I'm going to throw my pen so I don't want to accidentally hit you. So if I were, let's say this is my rock, okay, and I'm on a cliff. If I throw my rock, okay, and where my pen were to hit the water, okay, obviously hit the ground, but let's say it hit the water, okay, that would be 0, right? So it's up in the air, and then if it were to go all the way down to the ground, its height would be 0, right? It would be even with the surface. So your height would be 0. So H equals 0. All right, so we are still trying to find time, but the fact that we know that H equals 0 is going to help us a little bit. All right, so if we rewrite our equation, so now we know that 0 is equal to negative 16 t squared plus 32t plus 16. Okay, so now we know that. All right, so what types of methods do we have for solving this? Okay, what do we have? Okay, we have factoring, right, where we can go ahead and take the GCF. Okay, so our first is factoring. And our second method is what? We learned it last week. It has to do with square roots. Not difference of squares. Solving by square roots. You remember that? It's literally called solving by square roots. Okay, so I'm just going to write square roots. All right, so square roots here will not work because even if I subtracted that 16 over and tried to unbury my t squared, notice I still have that t term that's kind of like in my way, right? All right, if I were to take out a 16 as my GCF, right? So let's say I were to take out a 16 as my GCF, that would leave me with negative t squared plus 32t plus 16. And that wouldn't really work because I've never dealt with a negative t squared. Okay. If I took out a negative 16 as my GCF, I would be left with t squared minus 2t minus 1. Okay, and that too would not work. Okay, so factoring doesn't work. Square roots doesn't work. So we have to have a new method. All right, so today we are going to learn what that new method is. All right, and that new method is called the quadratic formula. All right, so this looks really, really scary, I know. Promise it's not that scary.
She used to be my sister's iPhone password.
No way.
Yeah, she's like a genius.
Wow. Okay. All right, so we are going to fill in the boxes with the corresponding letters. Okay, so it looks really weird right now. It's really not that bad. All right, so does everybody at least think that this looks familiar? Okay, so we're good with identifying which one's A, which one's B, which one's C. Okay? All right, so that is all we're going to do with the quadratic formula. Okay? So your first value is going to be negative B. So negative B. Plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4A C all over 2 times A. Yep. All right, so negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. I know, right? Why? Who invented that? There is a good why. All right, so remember, what is this 2 up here in my quadratic equation? Tell me about the number of solutions I'm going to have. So if I have x squared, how many solutions am I going to have? Savvy? 2, right? So that highest exponent tells me how many solutions I'm going to have. That is why we have this really weird plus or minus thing happening. Okay, so we don't really see that very often in math, the plus or minus thing, but that's why. So if we have negative B plus the rest of it, that's going to give us 1 solution. And if we have negative B minus the rest of it, that's going to give us our other solution. Okay, so that is the purpose of that plus or minus. Next thing that we need to work on is being able to identify variables, okay? So we need to be able to pick a quadratic equation apart into our A, B, and C terms. All right, so for this first one, what is our A?
Your 7x, right?
My what?
Your 7x.
No, you're 2x.
Or it's 7.
Ooh, what is it?
It's actually 2. It's negative 2.
All right, if I look at negative 2x squared plus 7x minus 5, which one of those numbers is my A value?
2x, negative 2x, negative 2.
All right, Lennon, I agree with you, but you're going too much.
It's negative 2.
Good, negative 2. Okay, so you're right, that's the term that I want, but make sure that I only get the number, okay? So I get negative 2, okay? All right, so negative 2 is my A value. All right, my B value then would be what? It will, yeah, I'm just going to get through this last part because this is review. All right, so B is what?
7.
Good, 7. And that makes C negative 5. All right, make sure that negative or positive goes with the number. Okay? All right, so we already identified our variables, so now we need to set up the formula here and solve. Okay? So does anybody remember the formula off the top of their head?
X is equal to the negative B plus or minus the square root B squared minus 4AC all over 2A.
See, it pays to know the song. It pays to know the song. All right, so negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. All right, so now what I'm going to do, Lennon, please focus. All right, what I'm going to do is plug in my variables, okay? So negative B, if I know that regular B is equal to 7, then negative B would be equal to what?
Negative 7.
Good, just negative 7. All right, so I'm going to get rid of negative B here and insert negative 7. All right, I leave plus or minus. B squared would just be 7 squared, which is 49. Okay? Minus 4. All right, I suggest when you plug in A and C, you don't actually multiply them through. You just simply put them down. Okay, so for right now, just go ahead and fill those in. Replace those variables. All right, and finally, 2 times A would just be 2 times negative 2, which is negative 4. Okay? All right, a note that you will want to write to yourself. over here is always multiply by -4. Okay, and here is what I mean by that. All right, we are ready for the calculator portion of the quadratic formula. So go ahead and pull out your calculator. All right, so you are only going to type in this part into your calculator. So -4, I'm highlighting it right now. -4, the 2, or I should say the -2, and the -5. Okay, so multiply all three of those numbers together into your calculator right now. -4 times -2 times -5. What'd you get? -40. Okay. All right, so whenever you are doing these quadratic formula questions, you will always, always, always add whatever you got right there. Okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite this. -7 plus or minus the square root of 49 plus, and then go ahead and put in parentheses whatever you got in your calculator. So we got -40, right? And then still all over -4. Okay, so plus, and then in parentheses what you got into your calculator. Okay? Is everybody good so far? Does anybody have any questions on what we've done thus far?
What to do?
What to do next?
Oh, okay, I got it. I was kind of.
Okay. All right, so -4 times your A times your C, and then that is always added to what is already under there. All right, so 49 plus -40 is just the same thing as taking 49 minus 40, yes? All right, so 49 minus 40 is simply just 9, right? All right. Do we know what the square root of 9 is?
3.
Good, 3. So instead of square root of 9, this becomes 3. All right, it is at this point that I'm going to choose to write my answer separately, which basically means I'm going to break up this plus minus right here. Okay? So all that means is I'm just going to write -7 plus 3 over -4 and -7 minus 3 over -4. Okay, so you're allowed to split up that plus minus. So whatever you got, you're allowed to just write it twice except changing that sign in the middle of the 7 and the 3. Okay, is everybody good thus far?
Yes.
Okay. I know this is kind of a lot.
It is.
All right, so -7 plus 3 is what? Good, -4. Over -4 would just be 1. So x is equal to 1 for our first solution. So look, that big crazy hot mess got you down to x equals 1. All right, -7 minus 3 is equal to what?
-10.
Good. Over -4. All right, so although we cannot actually take -10 divided by -4 and get a pretty perfect whole number, we can reduce, right? We can reduce. So my negatives would cancel out because a negative over negative is just a plus positive. Okay, and a 10 over 4, what can I divide both of those by? 2. So it just becomes 5 over 2. Okay, so x is equal to 1 and x is equal to 5 over 2 would be my two solutions
Wait,
using the
how do
quadratic formula. How do I what?
you get from -10 to -4 to 10?
Because my fraction is 10 over 4, or it was -10 over -4. I know if I have a negative over a negative, they're going to cancel out to a positive, and I just divided 10 and 4 both by 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5, and then 4 divided by 2 is 2. Okay? Any more questions on that? All right, so there's the whole problem all worked out all together. All right, comfortability, 3, 2, 1. Okay.
No.
All right, if you're at about a 2 right now, you're doing pretty good. Okay? 2 is grand right now. All right, so we are going to work through another problem together, okay? So let's go up to number 1 up here. All All right, unfortunately, we only have time for one more example. Okay, so I really need you to pay attention. And if you have to, rewatch these video notes 100 times, okay? It is okay. Quadratic formula is all about practice. So if you're not getting it right now, it is okay. You literally just have to practice, okay? All right, so first I'm going to identify my variables. So, wow, that was good. All right, so A is equal to what? 3, good. B is equal to 10. Uh-oh, I have a problem with C, don't I?
No. I mean, yes.
Ooh, what is wrong?
It's in the equal sign.
Yeah, it's on the wrong side of my equation because I need everything to be equal to 0, right? So how can I move this 5 over? Good, so I need to minus 5. All right, so C would be equal to negative 5, okay? If I were to rewrite this, I would just get 3x squared plus 10x minus 5 equals 0. Okay. So all I did was move that 5 over. All right, so negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over what? 2a.
Do you remember this, like, without?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right, so do you know how I learned it, Lennon? I practiced it for a lot of years. Ever since I was a freshman in high school, just like you.
Were you at school at Iowa?
No, probably not. All right, so if I know that regular b is 10,
I'm still gonna see whether or not I need to.
negative b is what?
Wait.
Good, negative 10. All right, so I just put in my negative b, which is negative 10. Madison?
Wait. Never mind.
Okay.
We're all good.
All right.
Wait.
What?
What happens whenever you have like a, if it is, your b in general is negative 10?
Very good question. So what if b in this instance was like negative 3?
Yeah.
So negative 3 would just be a positive.
Okay.
Okay.
So you wouldn't even. Okay.
Right. So if your b value is negative, you do indeed have to make it positive. That's
But
a really
it'll
good
be
question.
negative until it's like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. B squared. So your b squared term should never be what?
Negative.
Good, Mrs. Fisher. Your b squared term should never be negative, right? Because if you multiply a negative and a negative together, you're going to get a positive. And if you multiply a positive and a positive together, you're going to get a positive. Okay, so your b squared term should always be positivo. All right, so b squared is going to be 10 times 10, or 10 squared, which is 100. All right, minus 4, and I'm just going to go ahead and plug in AC for now. So A, C, all over 2 times A, which is 2 times 3, which is just 6. All right, now I need to put this part that I just boxed in highlighter in the calculator. So I need to take negative 4 times 3 times negative 5 into my calculator. What'd you guys get? Good, 60. All right, so negative 10 plus or minus radical 100 plus, remember I'm always plussing. That's not a word, but whatever. I'm always plussing, okay? Don't tell your English teacher I just said plussing. All right, so you're always doing that, okay? And finally, over 6. Okay, so when I add 160, what am I going to get? Good, so 160. Come on. Okay, there it goes. All right, 160. All right, so now, notice this time my radical is not able to be taken the square root of and come out a pretty perfect whole number, so it's not a perfect square. Okay, so I need to simplify my radical by either using a factor tree or by perfect squares, whichever method you prefer. All right, so I'm going to do a factor tree. Okay, so I know that 2 factors are 16 and 10. Sorry, I just went ahead and did it. All right, so 16 and 10. Okay, what are the 2 factors of 16?
8 and 2.
Okay, 8 and 2. All right, I know 2 is prime. 8 would be 4 and 2, right? And 4 would be 2 and 2. All right, factors of 10. Good, 2 and 5. All right, I need to identify my pairs. So I have a pair of 2's down here. I have a pair of 2's right here. And I am out of pairs. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and erase radical 60. Okay, so I'm erasing radical 60. Okay, and so my new radical, remember my pairs are privileged, so they get to live on the outside. So I have 2 2's on the outside, and I have a 2 and a 5 on the inside. So now I need to multiply those together. So 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, is everybody good there? Okay, so all I did was simplify my radical, which was less than 9.1. Okay, the only other thing I have left to do is simplify my 10, my 4, and my 6. Okay, so see these outside numbers, 10, 4, and 6? Okay, those are all divisible by 2, yes?
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and divide them all by 2. So I get negative 5 plus or minus 4 divided by 2 would just be 2. Okay. And 6 divided by 2 is just 3. Okay. Notice I did not simplify under the 10. You cannot simplify under radicals. Think of it as like a shield, okay? So the 10 is under a shield, you cannot simplify it, okay? If I had something, if I did not have a 2 out there in front of my 10, so if I just had negative 5 plus or minus radical 10 over 3, even if my 5 and my 3 could be simplified, I can't do anything because I do not have something out in front of here that can be simplified. So in order for you to simplify, you have to have this guy, and this guy all able to simplify. So you have to have those 3 in order to simplify. Okay? So that right there would be your final answer for this one. You're allowed to leave it just like that. Negative 5 plus or minus 2 radical 10 over 3. If, for some reason, we're doing a word problem, you're not going to tell someone that the ball will hit the water at negative 5 plus or minus 2 radical 10 over 3 seconds. Am I right? Do you have any idea what that means? I sure as heck don't. So that is when you would use your calculator. Okay?